stop right here, because this Emperor is not as controlled as he wants you to believe. This energy is uncomfortable for him, not because he does not feel anything, but because he feels too much. And that is the part he is trying so hard to hide. The embarrassing truth is that he thought he could manage this. He thought he could stay calm, stay distant, stay logical, and keep you in a place where his heart would not have to get involved. But the Five of Pentacles is showing the part of him he does not want exposed. This is the energy of someone standing outside the door, acting like they are fine, while secretly feeling shut out from the warmth they actually want. He may look powerful on the outside. He may move like someone who has everything under control. He may speak carefully, respond slowly, disappear into work, or hide behind silence. But inside, this Emperor feels the coldness of his own distance. And what he is not telling you is that some of this distance is not because he does not care. It is because he cares so much that he feels embarrassed by it. You have touched a place in him that makes him feel emotionally exposed. You make him aware of his own longing. You make him aware of the emptiness he tries to ignore. You make him aware that his pride cannot keep him warm at night. And that bothers him, because this is a masculine who is used to being the one people chase, the one people wait for, the one people wonder about. But with you, something has reversed. Now he is the one wondering. He is the one replaying. He is the one feeling left outside of your energy when you pull back. He may not say it directly, but when you become quiet, he feels it. When you stop giving him the same warmth, he notices. When your attention shifts away from him, something inside him panics quietly. The part he is embarrassed to admit is that he does not like feeling this powerless. He does not like how much your energy affects his mood. He does not like how your silence feels louder than other people's attention. He does not like that one small change in your tone can stay with him longer than an entire conversation with someone else. This Emperor is hiding the truth behind control. But deep down, he feels locked out of something he desperately wants back. And the Eight of Cups is showing exactly why this is starting to get under his skin. Because this is not just about missing you. This is about him watching your energy walk away from the place where he thought you would keep waiting. And that is the part that makes his control feel less like power and more like a trap. He thought if he stayed still long enough, if he stayed silent long enough, if he gave just enough but never too much, then you would remain emotionally available to him. But now there is a shift. Now he can feel that you are not standing in the same place anymore. You may still care. You may still feel something. But your energy is not begging at the door. Your energy is not sitting there, trying to decode every pause, every delay, every cold response. And he feels that. He may act like he does not notice, but he notices. He notices when you do not respond the same way. He notices when your tone is softer, but not as open. He notices when you are polite, but no longer pouring yourself into the connection. He notices when your warmth becomes measured. And that bothers him because he was used to receiving that warmth without having to fully expose himself. This is where his control starts betraying him. Because now, every controlled move he makes only makes him feel more trapped inside his own silence. He checks, but he does not want to look like he is checking. He waits, but he does not want to look like he is waiting. He rereads something you said, then tells himself it does not matter. He watches for a sign from you, then acts like he was never looking. And that is exhausting for him, because the Emperor can manage a room. He can manage responsibility. He can manage appearances, but he cannot manage the way your absence follows him into quiet moments. He cannot organize his feelings into something neat. He cannot command his heart to stop reacting when your energy pulls back. So what does he do? He becomes more calculated, more watchful, more careful with his words. He may respond slower, not because he forgot, but because he is trying to decide how much emotion he can reveal without feeling exposed. He may seem colder, not because he feels nothing, but because he is trying to hide the fact that he feels too much. But the real problem is not that you walked away. The real problem is that he is starting to realize he may have pushed you there. And the Four of Wands makes that realization even harder for him to sit with, because this card is not cold. This is warmth. This is welcome. This is the feeling of being able to come inside, to laugh, to be received, to feel like there is a place where the guard can finally come down. And that is exactly what he is embarrassed to admit he wanted with you. He may have acted like he did not need that. He may have acted like he could stay outside the celebration, outside the closeness, outside the emotional doorway, and still feel powerful. But now he is realizing that the very place he kept himself from entering is the place he actually wanted to belong. And that is what makes him feel ashamed, because this Emperor thought silence would protect him. He thought silence would make him look controlled. He thought if he did not say too much, if he did not show too much, if he did not reach too quickly, then he would stay in command of the connection. But now silence has become the room where his feelings echo louder. Now the quiet is not making him feel strong. It is making him feel exposed to himself. He sits in that stillness, and he hears everything he refused to say. He hears the apology he swallowed. He hears the softness he covered with distance. He hears the words, "I miss you," rising up. And then pride steps in and shuts the door again, because pride is still standing there. Pride is telling him, "Do not knock first." Pride is telling him, "Do not let them see that they got to you." Pride is telling him, "Wait, let them come to you." But his heart is not as obedient as his pride wants it to be. That is the embarrassing part. He may be holding the key, but he is refusing to use it. He may know there is a way back into the warmth, but he does not want to be seen needing the door opened. He may know he went too far, but admitting that means admitting he was not as in control as he pretended to be. So he negotiates with himself. Maybe he should reach out, but not too emotionally. Maybe he should check in, but make it casual. Maybe he should say something, but not the thing he actually feels. And every time he pulls himself back, he feels the distance again. But it is not only you he is missing now. He is starting to compare every bit of attention around him to yours, and it does not hit the same. And the Three of Cups reversed is showing why. Because this is the part where the noise around him starts to feel empty. He may still have people around him. He may still have conversations. He may still have distractions. Attention, validation, little moments where someone makes him feel wanted or admired. But it is not reaching the same place in him. It may touch his ego. It may fill the room for a moment. It may make him feel like he still has options. But it does not touch the part of him that you touched. And that is what he is struggling with, because this Emperor is used to knowing how to replace a feeling. If something becomes uncomfortable, he can work more. If he feels too exposed, he can get busy. If he misses someone, he can tell himself there are other people, other doors, other conversations, other ways to feel important. But with you, the usual distractions are not working the same way. He can be in the middle of attention and still feel the absence of your energy. He can hear compliments and still remember the way you understood something about him without him having to explain it. He can laugh with other people and still feel that quiet space where your warmth used to be. And that is the difference. Other people may make him feel desired, but you made him feel seen. Other people may respond to the version of him he presents, but you reached the version of him he tries to keep hidden. Other people may admire the Emperor, the controlled one, the composed one, the one who looks like he has everything handled. But you felt the man underneath all of that, and he knows it. He knows you were not just feeding his pride. You were not just clapping for the image. You were not just impressed by the surface. There was something about your energy that made him feel like he could be understood, without performing, and that is rare for someone who is always trying to stay in control. That is why the comparison is becoming painful, because now attention feels loud but not warm. It feels available but not intimate. It feels easy but not meaningful. And the more he tries to convince himself that he can find that feeling somewhere else, the more obvious it becomes that he cannot recreate what he had with you by collecting attention from people who never really saw him. This is where his mask starts to crack. Because your absence is not just making him miss you. It is forcing him to meet the version of himself he has been avoiding. And the Seven of Cups reversed is showing that he cannot hide behind confusion forever. Because before, he could tell himself there were too many options, too many possibilities, too many ways to read the situation. He could say, maybe this is not that deep. He could say, maybe I am just overthinking. He could say, maybe I can wait this out and the feeling will pass. But now the fog is starting to clear, and that is what makes him nervous. Because when the fog clears, he has to admit that he knows exactly what he wants to do. He knows he wants to reach out. He knows he wants to know where you stand. He knows he wants to feel that door open again. But knowing that does not make it easier, because now he cannot pretend he is detached. He opens the message, then closes it. He thinks about what he could say, then decides it sounds too emotional. He types something simple, then deletes it because simple feels too obvious. He waits for the right time, but the right time keeps becoming another excuse to protect his pride. He checks whether you have been active. He wonders if you would answer quickly. He wonders if you would answer at all. And that is where the pressure builds. Because the battle inside him is not between caring and not caring. The battle is between caring and being seen caring. This emperor does not like uncertainty. Uncertainty takes the crown off. Uncertainty puts him in a place where he cannot control the outcome, cannot manage your reaction, cannot guarantee that you will meet him with the same softness you once did. And for someone who is used to moving only when he feels secure, that feels dangerous. He wants reassurance without asking for it. He wants closeness without surrendering control. He wants your warmth without having to confess that the coldness bothered him. He wants the door open without admitting he has been standing outside it, waiting, watching, pretending he was not affected. So he pulls back again, not because the feeling is gone, not because he changed his mind, but because pride interrupts him right before vulnerability can speak. Pride says, do not give them that power. Pride says, wait until they show you something first. Pride says, stay composed. But his heart is tired of performing composure. And the thing that scares him most is not just that you might reject him. It is that you may have finally learned how to be okay without him. And the Nine of Swords shows why that thought gets so loud in his mind. Because this is not the energy of someone who is resting comfortably in his decision. This is the energy of someone sitting with the consequences of what he tried to avoid. The thoughts come in when everything is quiet. The doubts start circling. The questions start pecking at him. Did he push you too far? Did he wait too long? Did he mistake your patience for something that would always be there? And what makes it worse is that you are not attacking him. You are not screaming. You are not chasing. You are not demanding that he explain himself. You are simply becoming quieter, more protected, more careful with where your energy goes. And that is what he does not know how to handle. Because anger would give him something to respond to. If you were upset, he could defend himself. If you were emotional, he could say you were doing too much. If you were chasing, he could stay in that familiar position of being wanted, being waited for, being pursued. That would be easier for his ego to manage. But calm distance is different. Calm distance does not give him a fight. It does not give him a performance. It does not give him proof that he still has the same hold over you. It just sits there, quiet and steady, and forces him to feel the absence of what you used to give freely. And that is why your silence is not empty. Your silence is full of self-respect. It is full of the moment you realized you could care about someone and still stop abandoning yourself for them. It is full of the warmth you pulled back, not to punish him, but to protect the part of you that was tired of being left outside in the cold. And he can feel the difference. He can feel that this is not a game. He can feel that this is not you trying to make him jealous or force a reaction. He can feel that something in you has shifted from waiting to observing, from reaching to remembering yourself, from proving your love to questioning whether he knows how to receive it with maturity. That is what makes him anxious, because now he is starting to understand that the warmth he took for granted was never something he owned. It was something you chose to give, and if you can choose to give it, you can also choose to stop giving it where it is not being honored. So his next move may not look emotional, but pay attention, because it is going to reveal exactly how deeply this is affecting him. And the Fool is showing why he may try to make this look lighter than it actually is. Because this is the part where he wants a new opening, but he does not want to call it that. He may come in like nothing happened. He may appear casually, like he just happened to think of you. He may send something small, something simple, something that gives him room to pretend there is no emotional weight behind it. A question, a reaction, a like, a view, a little sign that says, "I am here," without having to say, "I have been feeling your absence." And that is very important, because for someone this guarded, small does not always mean meaningless. Sometimes small is the only doorway his ego will allow him to use. He may not come forward with a confession right away. He may not say, "I miss you." He may not, "I know I made this harder than it needed to be." He may not say, "I have been thinking about you more than I want to admit." Instead, he tests the ground. He wants to know if it is safe to step closer. He wants to know if your tone is still warm. He wants to know if the door is locked, or if there is still a small space where he can enter without having to humble himself all at once. So he may create a reason, something practical, something random, something that looks innocent on the surface. He may ask about something he could have figured out himself. He may mention something connected to you. He may show up where you can see him, but not in a way that forces him to fully reveal himself. Because the Fool here is not about him being careless. It is about him wanting a fresh step without knowing where he stands. And that makes him nervous, because every step toward you feels like a risk now. Before, he thought you would always be there emotionally. Now, he is not so sure, and that uncertainty changes everything. He may still sound composed. He may still keep the message short. He may still act like he is just checking in. But underneath that calm exterior, he is watching your response very carefully. He is listening for softness. He is measuring the distance. He is trying to see whether your energy still opens for him the way it used to. But do not mistake the small gesture for the full truth, because the real confession is still buried underneath his need to look controlled. And Temperance reversed is exposing what happens when that control starts becoming imbalance. Because this is not a man who feels peaceful inside. This is someone trying to hold two opposite things at the same time and realizing he cannot keep pretending they do not affect each other. He wants to stay composed, but he wants access to you. He wants to look detached, but he wants reassurance. He wants to appear unbothered, but your absence is bothering him in a way he cannot organize. And that is the confession underneath all of this. You mattered more than he planned. He did not expect that. He did not expect your energy to stay with him after the conversation ended. He did not expect your silence to make him question himself. He did not expect your withdrawal to make him feel the imbalance in his own life, the places where he has been functioning, performing, managing, but not really feeling safe. What he is not telling you is that his distance was not emotional freedom. It was a strategy. It was a way to keep one foot in and one foot out. It was a way to receive your warmth without having to fully admit that he needed it. It was a way to keep the connection close enough to comfort him, but far enough that he would not have to surrender control. But now that strategy is turning on him. Because losing access to your warmth has exposed a loneliness he thought he had mastered. He thought he was used to being alone in certain ways. He thought he could handle emotional distance because he has done it before. He thought he knew how to keep his feelings contained. But with you, the container is leaking. He does not like that he thinks about what he should have said. He does not like that he remembers your softness at random moments. He does not like that he can be surrounded by other things and still feel this one missing piece. He does not like that a connection he tried to control is now showing him where he is not in control at all. That is why the small gestures matter, but they are not the whole truth. They are circling around the confession he is not ready to place directly in your hands. They are circling around the fact that he misses the balance you brought into his world. They are circling around the fact that he knows he disrupted something that once felt warm, steady, and real. And now the question is whether he can humble himself enough to approach you differently, or whether pride will make him repeat the same wound. And now the Emperor himself is showing up, so we cannot avoid the core of this anymore. Because this is his moment of choice. This is where he has to decide whether he is going to keep sitting on that throne of pride. Acting like control is the same thing as strength, or whether he is going to step down from the image long enough to tell the truth. And the truth is uncomfortable, because it does not let him hide behind silence anymore. He can stay behind the wall. He can keep watching. He can keep waiting. He can keep pretending that if he does not move, he cannot lose. He can keep telling himself that restraint is wisdom, that distance is discipline, that holding back is safer than being honest. But the problem is that he is already losing something. He is losing access to the warmth. He is losing the softness that used to meet him. He is losing the version of this connection where you felt safe enough to keep giving without questioning whether he would ever meet you there. And that is where the Emperor has to grow, because maturity is not control. Maturity is not making someone wait while you decide whether your pride can survive the truth. Maturity is not hiding behind power when the heart is asking for honesty. If he wants to approach you differently, he cannot come in with the same energy that created the wound and expect you to respond like nothing happened. That is not how emotional safety works. You are not being asked to chase him. You are not being asked to prove your love harder. You are not being asked to shrink your standards just because he is uncomfortable with his own feelings. This is not about you making the doorway wider so he never has to bend. This is about whether he is willing to approach the doorway with humility. Because your energy has already taught him something. Love cannot be managed like a strategy. Warmth cannot be controlled like a resource. A person's heart cannot be treated like a place you visit only when it is convenient, and still expect the lights to stay on for you. And deep down, he knows that. He knows that pride has cost him peace. He knows that silence has cost him closeness. He knows that if he repeats the same pattern, he may get the same outcome. But this time, you may not be standing there with the same open heart. So now the pressure is on him. Not to perform, not to impress, not to regain control, but to choose honesty before pride turns this lesson into another loss. And regardless of what he does next, you are being asked to see the truth clearly now, instead of making yourself smaller just so he can stay comfortable. And the moon is showing why seeing the truth clearly matters now. Because this is where everything hidden starts rising to the surface. The moon does not always make things obvious right away. It brings up the feelings that were buried under silence. It brings up the fear behind the control. It brings up the part of him that can act calm in daylight, but feels completely different when he is alone with his own thoughts. And this is why the title keeps echoing through his energy. Why can't I control this? Because he thought he could. He thought he could control the pace. He thought he could control how much he cared. He thought he could control how much access you had to him and how much access he had to you. He thought if he stayed guarded enough, distant enough, careful enough, then his feelings would stay obedient. But they did not. And that is the embarrassing truth. It is not just that he has feelings. It is that these feelings have exposed the limits of his control. He cannot control how deeply your energy affected him. He cannot control the emptiness that came from pushing away the warmth he actually wanted. He cannot control the way pride starts to feel less like power when it leaves him standing outside the door. That is the part the Emperor does not want exposed. Because the Emperor wants to look certain. The Emperor wants to look steady. The Emperor wants to look like nothing shakes him. But the Five of Pentacles showed us the coldness behind that image. And now the moon is showing us the fear underneath it. He may still be quiet, but do not confuse his silence with indifference. He may still look composed, but do not confuse his pride with emotional strength. He may still be trying to move like this does not matter, but the truth is, something about you reached a place in him that control could not protect. And that does not mean you shrink. That does not mean you wait in the cold, just because he is afraid to admit he wants the warmth. That does not mean you make yourself easier to reach while he keeps making himself harder to understand. Your worth is not measured by how long you can stand outside someone's guarded heart. Your warmth is not something he gets to take for granted just because he does not know how to ask for it with humility. So let him sit with the truth. Let him feel what his distance created. Let him understand that control did not save him from caring. It only made him late to his own honesty, because this Emperor can hide behind silence. He can hide behind pride, but he cannot hide from the fact that the one thing he tried so hard to control is the very thing that finally exposed his heart.